So continuing on then here with Empires of the Middle Ages by SPI. Just starting turn 4 here, and we've got a NPC warlord kind of character in this game called a magnate, who's decided to start causing trouble from out of Venice. This is the first time this has happened, so I thought I'd pick up on it, partly because it's very dangerous for a number of the players, as we'll see, or we may see, depending on what happens. Anyway, yes, so a magnate here in Venice, and when this happens, the magnate gets his own hand of cards and starts taking actions as if he's a player. Very aggressive actions. So there's his magnate markers up there, and there's his hand of cards that I've dealt him, along with all the other players. Before I go any further, I should mention that I've still got my cold, so if my sniffling offends you through my cold, you should leave now, maybe, instead of leaving me comments on YouTube. Ha! So, here we go. Venice, of course, was a very powerful trading hub as a sort of Italian city-state principality. Enormously powerful sort of trading bloc during the medieval period, where it was the kind of principal hub between the Byzantine Empire and then all the places more remote that fed their goods and trade into the Byzantine area. So, you know, Persia and India and China, and all the silks and spices and stuff coming through here and hitting the Eastern Mediterranean was then channeled. A lot of it was then channeled through Venice to be traded up into Western Europe. So it was incredibly powerful, and so it's really quite fun that they've had their local warlord appear and start causing trouble everywhere. Fantastic. So let's do that guy first. I've rolled for the raiders, and they've decided not to raid this turn. They got a 6. So the Mediterranean is getting a reprieve from Saracen raiders, but we do have this magnate. Now what the magnate does, he keeps one of his cards back for defense. So he's going to use 4 of his 5 cards, and he's going to try and conquer areas around him. And he is going to select areas to conquer around him based on, I believe, their social state. So, yes, the magnate will undertake conquest endeavours against the area with the highest social state adjacent to his court. If he's got more than one option, he will choose the area most similar to him in religion and language, because that makes it the easiest to conquer. And if there are still 2 which are tying, then he will roll a die to determine which one he's going to go for. So if we look around Venice, the social states around are pretty low. He's got Tuscany with a social state of -2. He's got Lombardy with a social state of -1. That's because these areas have been hit quite hard by Saracen raiders. He's got Verona with a social state of -1. And that's it by land. Now, I'm wondering if he will also look at sea, because Venice is a seafaring port, so he'd get no minuses for looking at sea. It does say adjacent to his court, and it isn't clear to me, and I have checked this in the rules, it isn't clear to me whether, I think the Adriatic counts as adjacent to his court, but obviously that's not a land area, because that would open up Rome, Naples, Apulia, and Macedonia as well. But let's have a look. That's -1. Greece is not directly connected to the Adriatic. That's -1. Naples is a 0. So what's he looking at? -2, -1, -1. So if he were going to go to C, if he were going to go by C, if we were assuming he could attack through the Adriatic, or was going to attack through the Adriatic, he would try and conquer Naples. If he were not, he would be choosing on a die roll between Verona and Lombardy. So it's a question of quite what we want to do here, and I'm just going to have a pause and see if there's any clarity in the rulebook. Okay, so I'm going to take, in answer to that question, I'm going to take this rule here as being definitive. The lines by which the land area registers interconnect indicate geographic adjacency. Only area registers that are directly linked by a connecting line represent bordering areas. So directly linked is not indirectly linked via a C box, and I'm going to say that only land areas are considered adjacent, as on the basis of that rule, which seems fair enough. So therefore our Venetian magnate is going to look at Verona and Lombardy. Now they are both the same language as him, and they're both the same religion as him, and they're both -1 on their social state. So he's going to roll a dice. On a 1 to 3 he's going to attack Verona. He gets a 3, so he's attacking into Verona, and now we do the calculation for his attack. So he's doing conquest, which is his combat stature, and he has a 5, which is nasty, and the social state of his base area, Venice, is +2, that's 7 total. He subtracts the social state of the target area. Actually, no, let's put that a different way. We're going to calculate the total resistance to his attack, which will be the social state of the target area, which is -1. Fortifications in Verona, none. Defending leader's combat stature will come to. Language modifier and religion modifier. There's none of those. Same language, same religion. So he's got a 7 from himself, and he's going to subtract -1 from that. So he's going to go up to an 8. And the only other impact there's going to be on that number is if the yellow player here decides to play a card in defense of Verona, and that would then subtract a further 3 and drop it down to 5. If he does that, 5 is still pretty high. So the first thing yellow has to think is that, firstly, 5 is very high. Still gives the guy a good chance to conquer my area. Secondly, let's say that I successfully defend him. He's going to do the same again next turn, either against Verona or Lombardy, and I'm going to be spending card after card after card, and I'm going to end up with no hand left this turn. So, and I may not stop him anyway. Is that a good deal? That's a very difficult decision, isn't it? The other thing you have to wonder is that if our magnate conquers Verona, what's his next target going to be? He's going to be looking for social states around him. Well, that's -1 there. There's a 0 in Switzerland, which isn't us as the blue player. Sorry. I've been suggesting that the yellow player would have to play cards, but this is obviously a blue area. What's blue? Well, blue's got the same thing. He's got a 3 military, so he would be dropping the attack by 3. Actually, if it was the yellow player, he'd only be dropping it by 1. So that would be completely useless. Okay, let's rewind a second here. Blue, who's being attacked in Verona, can spend a card to reduce the effectiveness of that attack by 3, but if he does so, he's looking at Verona and Lombardy being attacked again. And again, and again. If Verona falls, the magnate might go into Burgundy, into Switzerland, which is yellow, or Croatia. And both of those are the same religion but different languages. Slavonic over here and Germanic up here. So blue, on balance, is deciding not to spend his cards defending Verona. The problem with this, of course, the real problem with this, is that if Verona falls, then none of these areas down here that blue has are then connected to his empire. In other words, there is no line of connected areas that goes back to his court, and therefore he won't be able to rule these areas at all, or tax them at all, or anything else. They're just going to sit there in unrest until they get taken by someone else. But that may be what's going to happen anyway, and it may be futile to try and prevent it, and he may be better off trying to solidify his German holdings rather than waste his resources clinging on to this sort of Italian limb of his empire, which he's never going to be able to protect. So he's not, on balance, going to defend Verona, and he is going to let the magnate attack it with an overall effectiveness of 8. And so our magnate flips his card over, and it says Conquest C, target area -1, active base, no impact. So he did well not to spend a card defending that, because it would have had no impact whatsoever and he'd have just lost the area. Okay, so our magnate just took Verona. Now blue keeps a claim on Verona, but we'll just whip his social state off and put the magnate on there, and it's now -2. And now our magnate chum is going to look at his next conquest. Lombardy's a -1, Tuscany is a -2, Switzerland a 0, Croatia a 0. So now he's going to look at Switzerland or Croatia as his potential conquests, and he's going into Switzerland. And this is going to get very, very scary for the yellow player. Very scary indeed, because if Switzerland falls, then the natural place for the warlord to attack is going to be Burgundy, with a social state of 3 and a related language, and he's just going to be hammering on Burgundy with the rest of his actions. So, and Switzerland, the yellow player who owns Switzerland and Burgundy has this useless leader with 1 combat ability to defend himself, so ouch. Here we go then. The warlord attacking into Switzerland. He has got a combat value of 5. He's got a social state that he's attacking from now has to be Verona, which is -2. That gives him a 3. The defense of the area is the social state of the target area, which is 0. The defending leader's combat stature, we'll come to that. Language modifier, it's an unrelated language, blue against yellow, so that's a 2, and a religion modifier of no religion modifier because they're both the same. So there's a defense of 2, an attack of 3, that leaves it a net 1. His combat stature of 1 will allow him to play a card and reduce it to a 0, and he's going to have to do this because he needs to defend the approaches to his capital, his court of Burgundy. So now he's reduced the value to 0. Let's see what the warlord gets. If he gets the same as he got last time, he's going to conquer it anyway. Oh, and he has, look. He's got a C result. Target -1, active base -1 on a 6 or less. So he's going to conquer Switzerland. Its social state is going to go down to -1, and Verona, where he launched the attack from, is going to go down another 1 to -3. Okay, so let's just get the camera pointed in the right direction. So again, yellow is going to keep a claim on Switzerland, but the magnate just took it, dropped its social to -1, and Verona took a hit for that as well, down to -3. And now Mr. Warlord is obviously going to look at Burgundy because that's the highest social state that he can reach now, which has a 3. So he's attacking Burgundy. He has got out of Switzerland, so he has got a 5 combat value. He has got a social state from the area he's launching it from of -1. That puts him on a 4. The defense of Burgundy is actually looking very strong. The social state of the target area is 3. It has fortifications of 2. That makes it 5. It has a language modifier because it's a light yellow against this darker yellow of 1. That puts it up to 6. So the magnate has no chance of conquering Burgundy. He's on a -2 to try and conquer Burgundy, which means he doesn't do that. He tries to do something else. I need to look up what. It may be to pillage Burgundy, or it may be that he changes tack and looks somewhere else. Okay, so having checked about this magnate, he has no chance of conquering Burgundy, so he then checks to see if he can pillage Burgundy, and if he can, then he continues to pillage it either until there's a more desirable area to conquer or attack, or he's got a chance of successfully attacking it because he's dropped its social state down. However, he's got no chance of pillaging Burgundy. Either its defences are way too strong with the same language as his court, or a related language, the same religion as him, and its fortifications and its very high social state. So he then turns his attention to other areas that he can conquer. I was wrong, Croatia does not have a 0, it's a -1, I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, he's gone the right way, he took Switzerland on a 0, and now he wants Swabia on a 0, which is the highest social state around his area. So he's going to attack into Swabia, also owned by the blue player. The blue player really is not happy about that. We'll calculate his effectiveness. He's got a 5 military ability, and he's got a -1 because he's attacking out of Switzerland, and that's its social state. So he's got a net 4. The defense of Swabia is 0 for its social state, no fortifications. The same religion is no defense, but an unrelated language to the Venetian, Italian, Romantic languages down here means it's got a net 2. So it's currently 4 -2. And the blue player can take it down to a -1 and render the attack ineffective by playing a card, and is going to do that because he's not happy about that area being conquered, so he's going to chuck that card. The magnate still has to go ahead with the attack So it goes ahead, but it has no chance of effectiveness. And now he's going to do the same thing again. We're going to get exactly the same attack again, because that's the area he's interested in going for. And blue again is going to reduce the chances of that to 0. And the magnate is going to... and that would have conquered it had there been any chance at all. So that's blue defending his area against the magnate. Now, this could go on for some time. The magnate will only go away when he plays a card with a leader check on it of a 5, because his ability is 5. And I don't think we've seen any leader check cards. I'll just double check to make sure that nothing in here would have seen him disappear. No, there's no leader check requires on any of these cards. So unfortunately for everyone on the board, the magnate is sticking around, but that's his turn now done, and we go into the players to determine what player order they're going in. Coming towards the end of turn 4 here in Empires of the Middle Ages, or round 4 I should say. Just going round, the Burgundian player is actually establishing quite a decent position now, aided by a lack of Saracen raiding out of the Mediterranean. So he's actually got a pretty stable and fortified base now in Aragon, a decent base in Provence, Burgundy well protected, and just successfully claimed Corsica. The French player is continuing to build this northern French empire. He's improved Champagne and fortified in Flanders. Quite a successful turn. The Poles really struggling. This guy with his administration of 1 is making it almost impossible for them to improve the social state in any of their areas. That means he's got no tax income because he can't get that social state positive. And without income, he can't use his ability to conquer things because he's got no gold to pay for conquest, and he's got no gold to pay for fortifications. He's just managed to get Bohemia to 0 on social state and fortify it. Really struggling to get any action going at all, though. You can't get that engine going of a positive social state, tax income, improving areas, expanding, just not happening. So but at least nothing terrible is happening in this part of the world at the moment, so he's just quietly being left alone to flounder. Germany fortified Swabia and Austria against the threats of Venetian expansion, and the Danes continued quietly building. They've got another enlargement of King's personal domain, which improved their tax base again, and improved Mercia quite considerably. His 5 administration allowed him to improve Mercia a couple of times from a -2 to a 0 and fortify it. Quite a successful turn for the Danes. And now we've come to the Byzantines, the last player, and they've got this awful leader dies airless card that has thrown Anatolia, Armenia, Macedonia and Apulia into revolt. Their 5-5-5 leader has been replaced by a 2-3-5, and we now have to roll for rebellion in each of these areas. And I thought I'd do this on camera because I hadn't explained this. The problem with having areas in unrest is that if you have to make a rebellion roll for an area, then the rebellion value that you're rolling on is increased by 5, as you can see there, +5. Sorry, the page is shaking. If area is already in a state of unrest, and he's going to have to make unrest rolls for each of these areas now: Armenia, Anatolia, Macedonia and Apulia. So he may well lose these areas, because if they rebel, they become neutral again, and that's obviously very bad. So let's see what happens. Armenia, let's add its rebellion up. Then it has a rebellion of 5 for being a state of unrest. It's the area's language is unrelated to that of the court. Yes, it is. It's non-Indo-European, and the court is Hellenic, so that's +2, 7. It is the same religion at least, and it is no fortifications, no diplomatic ties. So it has a base rebellion value of 7. Do we add its social state to that? Apparently not. So we then look over on this table here, the rebellion value of area, and we roll 2 dice and we cross-index that 7, and you can see that only on a 7 does it come out of unrest. The rest of the time the R's mean it rebels and they lose it, and the U's mean it remains in unrest. So yeah, this is all going to be very, very unpleasant. He's got a 4, and that is rebellion. And so Anatolia, he retains his claim on it, but it's just become neutral with a -1 -1 social state. Uh-oh. And we're going to do the same over here for Armenia. Armenia's even worse for him, because Armenia has the 5 for being rebel, 2 for being a different language, that's 7. If it's connected to an independent area of the same language and religion, it gets a +1, which it is. You can see Georgia up there is independent, same language, same religion. So the influence of Georgia is driving a bit more rebellion, and its rebellion factor is now 8. And we'll roll on the chart against 8. And he gets a 7, which is probably the best possible result, and that means it simply stays in unrest. Down here in Macedonia, he's got a 5 for the unrest, he's got a 2 for a different language, that's 7. It's connected to a neutral area of the same language and religion, that's an 8 in Macedonia as well. He gets a 6, that's going to be decent, that just stays in unrest. And finally here in Apula, same thing again, 5 for the unrest, 2 for a different language. It's connected to Naples, which is independent, same language and religion. That's a rebellion of 8. And he rolls 2 dice and he gets a 10. That's going to be nasty. That is rebellion in Apula. The unrest is gone, but so is his social state marker. He retains his claim on Apulia, but it is now neutral, and I believe it was on its -1. I don't think anything had happened there. So that leader dies airless has cost him 3 points of combat ability, 2 points of administration ability, and 2 areas and some unrest. So not a good start to the turn. Let's see what he can do now. Round 7 here in Empires of the Middle Ages by SPI, and the local warlord in Venice stopped playing up a while ago. He did conquer Lombardy though before he went away, and that has opened the door then for the Burgundian player to sneak in here and take Lombardy, even though the German Empire still has claims to Lombardy. It's currently in Burgundy's hands. But the Burgundian player now faces a threat of Muslim attacks out of Castile into Aragon here. This is likely to be a very popular target. So we'll see what happens there. Elsewhere, a year of plenty, which puts social states up in lots of areas, has helped out the Poles quite considerably. All that admin work that they've been unable to do themselves to improve the social standards in their areas got done by a year of plenty. Poland's up to 3, Bohemia's up to 2, and that's now allowing them to collect more tax revenue. And so they collected 5 last turn and didn't spend any, just tried ruling as best they could without it. So they've got some money in the bank now and should be able to collect some more this turn on their go. They'll be the first player this turn because they have a 2-1-5 leader. Anything else happen on the leaders? Oh yes, the Burgundians. They had went through 2 leaders in quick succession, but ended up with this, a 3-9-5. 3 is acceptable military prowess to defend yourself from anything else around the table, but 9 administration, that is serious, and 5 diplomacy should help them out as well. So they are a serious player all of a sudden in terms of improving their areas, fortifying their areas. That gives them very, very good chances. Anyway, I've got to work out what this magnate is going to do. I think what he's going to do is repeatedly attack Aragon, the Burgundian player, if it's possible for him to do that on a positive. He may just pillage Aragon, or he may have to content himself with conquering the Iberian Peninsula. Let's see. Well, the local warlord in Castile proved to be no problem at all. He couldn't conquer Aragon, but he did have a chance to pillage it, which is his next option, but he had an effectiveness of 0. He had to go for it anyway, and the yellow Burgundy player had a decision to make whether to spend cards knocking him down to negative so he couldn't possibly pillage it. Decided not to, and this was the card. Pillage, no result, no effect on the target area, -1 on the active base, and a leader check, 1, 2, 3, 5, and that simply knocked Castile's social state down, and the warlord was removed somehow. You fear for his safety, don't you? So Aragon is fine, the Burgundian player is fine, and we continue with determining player order. Coming up to the halfway point in the game then, we're on round 10, at the start of round 10. No magnates this turn, no Saracen raiders either in this 25-year period, so the Mediterranean has had a break from them. And yeah, the Danish have just expanded out a little bit, conquering Sweden. Everyone's just been fighting to try and maintain and slightly improve their areas, build some fortifications. The German Empire is pretty much consolidated in this blue language region. They've not done anything to try and recover their possessions down in Italy, and they've lost Lombardy, so there's no real way to forge a path of connected territories down there now. There was some trouble with a magnate attacking out of Syria here that took Anatolia from the Byzantines, but they've expanded into the Balkans here, forming diplomatic ties with Croatia and Serbia, and conquering and claiming Bulgaria. The Burgundian Empire has done pretty well. They've got themselves down into Provence here, well fortified against raids with a good social state. They've now got Corsica fortified with a positive social state, Aragon as well. So they've not got a large empire, but it's very tightly controlled, fortified, in a good position, but they've lost their 9 administration leader. And the French are doing much the same. You know, they're building up this orange Normandy, Champagne, or de France area. They've extended a claim down into Lyon and one up into there in Wales. They did that at a time when they had a very diplomatic leader. Everyone has got a very mundane leader now. We've got a 3-3-3 here down for the Byzantines. Burgundy 3-2-3. 3-2-3 for the French. The Germans have got a 3-3-3. The Danes have got a 3-3-3, and the most exciting leader on the board, the Polish leader, 3-5-3. They have at least got themselves to a point where they can make income now. Bohemia has, fortification and 2 social status. Silesia the same. Poland's up to +3. So they've actually kick-started their economy, and they can make enough tax to start getting things done, and now it's a question of where they want to go. With the Byzantines approaching from this direction, they probably want to head up into this Moscow area and take Kiev and Moscow and Smolensk and so on. But yeah, that's a long old trek for them to do that. They need to get this place, Volhynia, sorted in terms of social state and fortification, and then push on into this area. So long term, that's probably their plan, try and force their way eastwards. Anyway, that's where we're up to. The pace of the game is really quite nice in that things happen quite gradually, but that's why I'm not dropping in on a sort of turn-by-turn basis, because not enough happens to really report on now. Things are just gradually moving to the point where players have enough money and enough solidity to perhaps look around them and wonder where they're going to make some sort of move on another player.